If you have a question, please put it in the chat. We welcome your questions. My fellow volunteer, Mary Roberg, will address them periodically throughout this demonstration. She will also be putting the links for the recording, the web address for Liz's recipes, and information on the April 18th cooking class throughout this demonstration. So today, Liz will show us how to make delicious Southwestern pulled pork and a creamy cheesecake using an Instapot. The recipes can be found at Cook-Along Classes, Liz Barber's Creative Feast at thecreativefeast.com. This event is part of a series with the Creative Feast, which focuses on food and its impact on healthy living. AARP has been promoting the health and well-being of older Americans for over 60 years. In New Hampshire, AARP works to bring you informative, innovative, and fun virtual events like today's online cook-along demonstration as a means of connection and inclusion. AARP has numerous free healthy living resources on its website, which include staying fit, wellness, and longevity, information on healthy eating, as well as staying sharp. There is something for everyone. Mary will put a link in the chat. Chef Liz built her cooking career in various Boston catering and restaurant venues. After starting her family, she re-entered the food world as a cooking instructor and developed Liz Barber's Creative Feast. Liz has appeared on New Hampshire's WMUR Cook's Corner. Her cooking demonstrations and recipes and herb gardens have been featured in various publications, including Where Women Cook, New Hampshire Magazine, the Nashua Telegraph, and the Hippo Press. All her programs focus on the premise that we are healthier when we cook at home. We hope you enjoyed today's program. Liz, take it away.
Thank you so much, Frances. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for AARP New Hampshire hosting and inviting me back again and again. This is always a pleasure to join you all in my kitchen in Hollis, New Hampshire. As you may have heard, we have a lot to cover today. So I am going to take you to my website to share the website so you can see where the recipes are, although I'm sure the ladies are putting the links into the chat. But I wanted to take you to the website so that you can go there anytime. We have so many recipes there from all of our all of our programs over the years. So let me what did I just do here? I forgot to share. There we go. I'm going to share. Whoops. And there we go. So here we go. This is my website at the Creative Feast. And there's lots of information here for you. Most of it is hidden under this Food and Fun tab. And if you go to where it says Recipe Blog and you click on that, you see right over here to the right, these are the past 3 years, this year and 2 previous years of our cook-along programs with the recipes. So if you go to 2025, of course, you're going to find today's recipes and recipes that are coming up. So you're always welcome to cook along with me. Just click on those and those are available to you. Also, if you go to the recipe blog itself, you will find many more recipes here for you to enjoy, and all of them are categorized. So I hope that you will go and check that out. In particular, I do have a section on Instant Pot cooking. And so that will give you more recipes that you will enjoy. Here's our classic cheesecake that we're going to be doing today. You can do chicken stock. Here is our a rendition of this pork recipe that I've just taken a little bit of liberty with. So lots for you to see here as well. But as I mentioned earlier, what we really need to do right now, and I'm just going to minimize this a little, is get cooking. So we're going to be doing a Southwest pulled pork. Now, I know the Instant Pot has been popular for years, and I over the years have done many classes over and over and over again. But I guarantee you, somebody in the audience today still has their Instant Pot in the original box that their child gave them, thinking that they would be helping you cook quicker. Or maybe you bought it yourself and you thought, I'm going to give this a try. And it just adds to your crock pot and all these other gadgets, maybe oh, your uh now I can't even think of the name. The small convection oven that you've got on your countertop, your air fryer, all of these things tend to gather dust. But this one should not, because this is truly, once you get the hang of it, and it doesn't take long, it truly helps you to get things cooking very quickly, but also incredibly flavorfully. So today we are doing the cheesecake, but I'm going to save that until the end. I really need to get this pork dish going. So I'm going to speed through the beginning of the recipe so we can get it in there, and then I can talk to you about the Instant Pot and how this works, okay? So the pork recipe is super simple. It's just, you just buy a pork loin. You can buy any kind of pork. I wouldn't do it with a tenderloin because that's an expensive cut. And the whole point of the Instant Pot is to cook it under pressure to help break down the fibers in the meat. And you want some of that really good fat to add to it. So I'm just going to cut this into big chunks. All right. And why am I doing that? Well, the bigger, the smaller the piece is that you're working with, the more tender it will be, and it will tend to cook well under the instructions. Now, this recipe is from one of my favorite cookbooks, and I'm going to share that with you. But lots of spices here. So if we're looking at the recipe, I'm just going to get the list of spices for that. So we have smoked paprika, cumin, coriander. We also have salt, a little bit of cayenne pepper. You can go as heavy or as light on that as you want. Some garlic powder, and you just mix these together and get them into that spice mix. Now, if you're really following the recipe, you're going to let this sit for 30 minutes, but we're going to move this ahead really fast today. And so I just wanted you to see this process. Then again, you would let this sit for 30 minutes. Now, we're going to put this in the Instant Pot, and we're going to be using just a 1/4 cup of water. Every time you use the Instant Pot, some kind of liquid has to be in there, and at least, typically at least 1 cup of liquid. But if when you cook your ingredients, your pork, for example, during the cooking process, this will actually give off a lot of water, more than a cup worth, then that would be a reason for only using a 1/4 cup. I follow my recipes, that I go online for, and I follow them very closely. Don't try to adapt them too much. So I would have thought, why isn't there a full cup of water? Well, again, I've learned that the pork itself will give off plenty of water to make up for that one cup. Now, the water or the liquid, if you're using a stock, the point of that is to help your Instant Pot come up to pressure. You've got to have that liquid in there to form a pressure seal. Now, we have, again, I'm going to go over all of this. I just got to get this in here and get it going so we can have it finished by the end of class. I'm also going to talk to you about what's called pot-in-pot cooking. So we have our pork in the bottom here with its seasoning, but at the same time, I'm going to cook rice. Now, this is not like a crock pot where I'm going to put all of the ingredients together. I am going to cook the rice in a separate vessel. That way, the rice will not take on the flavor of the pork, but also if I cooked the rice in here, the rice would absorb all of that liquid and you could potentially burn what's going on in here. So that's why we want to cook in another container. So my other container is this is an oven-proof container. This is made for Instant Pots. I'm using a 6-quart Instant Pot, so you want to make sure that this is going to fit in with plenty of room to take it in and out. So typically about 7 inches across, 7 to 7.5 inches across. You don't ever want to put something in here that you're going to struggle to get out with. So I find it's actually better to buy equipment that is made to go in the Instant Pot, and all you have to do is go on to like an Amazon and say 6-quart Instant Pot accessories, and you'll get a whole list of accessories. So I'm adding my rice to this, and because we're cooking in a moist environment in here under pressure, you only have to use 1 cup of water to 1 cup of rice, or 2 cups of water to 2 cups of rice, depending on how much rice you want to cook. When you cook your rice on the stove, you typically do 2 parts water to 1 part rice, because a lot of that water evaporates in steam, but it won't do that in the Instant Pot. The Instant Pot keeps everything in here nice and tight under pressure. So we really only need the 1 cup of water. So I'm going to, where did I put my measuring cup? Here we go. No, that's not it. I know
Excuse
it's
me.
somewhere here. There it is.
Okay, excuse me, Liz. Someone
Yes.
did have a question that if she had doubled the meat, would she also double the spices?
That's a really good question. This is a very flavorful dish. So you could do, I think you could get away with 1.5 times, but I mean, as long as you've got the spices already done, you might as well go ahead and double it. Now, if you have doubled the recipe, that is going to raise the amount of pork in here, and you may struggle to put the rice container in there and have it sit correctly in the pot. So if you've doubled your recipe and you have a 6-quart container, I would cook your rice separately and just do your pork. Okay, but just to keep it, to keep everything correct, doubling everything would be the best way to go, including that cup of liquid. So you would be using a 1/2 cup of liquid for the pork. Now, I've got my rice in here with my water 1 to 1, and I'm just going to cover this with foil. And this will help my rice to keep it from overcooking in the time that we're going to be cooking our pork. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to literally sit it right down on top of the pork. And that's it. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my Instant Pot. Now, what you'll notice is when I put this on, listen to the sound. Can you hear that little bit of a bell? That tells me that my lid is seated on the Instant Pot. Then when I lock it, it does another sound, and that tells me that it's locked. You always have to lock the Instant Pot. Now, the Instant Pot itself will always open until it comes under pressure. Once this comes under pressure, you cannot get this open, and that's a safety feature. So keep that in mind. On the top, you'll see there's this button here, okay? It's set at either venting, which allows the steam to come out, and you would use that when you're removing the pressure, or sealing. And that's what we want to do now, because we want to seal in the pressure. Then when I look at the front of my Instant Pot, I'm going to set the timer. We're going to set this for 20 minutes, just to save us a little bit of time, okay? And so if you need to do this manually, there is here a minus and a plus. So say you have, oh, I'm going to turn this off. Say I'm going to be cooking something that only takes 15 minutes, right? I can turn on where it says power, turn that on, and then a time will come up here. It's the time that I set for the last batch of whatever I cooked, and I can adjust that manually. You can also, we can cook this and say we're going to cook it on the meat and stew setting, but I still have to set the time. So you still want to do that. So here, if I set this, it says 35. So I'm going to take that down to 25. So I'm going to drop that. by pushing this button, I'm actually going to do it to 20 for today, and that's 20 minutes. Now, I'm done touching the controls of my Instant Pot, and I'm going to let that come up to pressure. All right, it let me know that, yep, my computer brain is on. I registered that you set this for 20 minutes. I registered that this is sealed. I'm ready to heat up. Okay, now let's take a breath. We got this in. So I'm gonna kind of go back over the Instant Pot, how this works, all right? So right now we have our food in there. We have the liquid. Now, as I mentioned before, every recipe that you have requires that you put liquid into this inner pot. Now I'm just going to set this one aside and let it cook. And I'm going to bring my second one out here just so you can see. Now this is an 8-quart Instant Pot, much larger. I like to have both because I often like to double, triple, quadruple recipes. You can double a recipe, most recipes easily in your 6-quart. But if you're going to do anything more than that, you want to get up to an 8-quart. Now, it takes longer to come to pressure in an 8-quart than it does in a 6-quart. So just keep that in mind. I wanted to move our class along a little bit faster. So I'm using, typically what I would use is my 6-quart. All right. But if I'm going to make a big pot of, say, chicken broth or chicken stock, I like to cook it in my 8-quart because I can really load that up. And then I have no time restrictions, so I don't worry about that. Now,
Liz,
let me just, yep,
excuse me, Liz, we have 2 questions.
yeah,
One is, what setting are you using for the cooking? And the other is, and I'm thinking both pots do plug in to an electrical outlet.
yes. hmm Yep. So yes, this is something that you can set on your countertop. I personally like to put it under my stove, on my stove on I use this, I set it on this on top of my burner so that I don't burn it, because you don't ever want to turn on your burner. But I like it under the hood in case, when I do release the pressure, a lot of steam comes out, and I like it to go right into the hood. If you do this in front of your cabinetry and you let the steam go up, it will actually remove the finish on your cabinetry. So I caution you. That's why I always put it on the stove so that it just goes right up into the hood. So just something to keep in mind. Now let's look at the inner parts of your Instant Pot. So this is your vessel, and it's a beautiful stainless steel pot. You will notice that it actually has some measurement information on here. The most important thing to remember is that it does tell you there's a maximum level that you can put food in. If you go over that, the computer here senses that, and it won't let you turn on your Instant Pot. So you need to keep the amount of ingredients below this line. So that's your main limitation there. Your Instant Pot heats up from the bottom, okay? Not from the sides, but from the bottom. So when you're cooking, okay, in your Instant Pot, the heat is coming up from the bottom first. So do you know how I put the pork? I put the pork on the bottom here, and then I put the rice on top. The heat is coming up from the bottom, so that pork will cook for a longer period of time over the rice, right? So the heat comes up, the pressure is building inside the vessel. It can take between 5 and 10 minutes for your pressure to build enough. But in that time, whatever is at the bottom is actually, cooking as it heats up. So the longest cooking item goes on the bottom, and then the shortest cooking item goes on the top. All right. So we always have to cook. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, Liz, we have a few more
Sure.
questions.
Sure.
Okay. One of them is, if you do not have an Instant Pot, can this recipe be adapted to a crock pot or the oven?
It can be. So just I don't have that adaptation. But if you are doing it in a crock pot, you will need more liquid to that. And then if you're doing it in the oven, you'll definitely need more liquid to that because you're going to be cooking it for a much longer period of time. So again, I don't have the adaptation for that. But I would say if I were to do this pork dish in the oven, I might put in at least a cup of liquid in there and then cook it at, probably about 350. But you could be cooking it for about 1.5 to 2 hours. It just depends on your oven. Again, I can't give you that exact changeover, but yes, they are all adaptable. In fact, your crock pot recipes can be adapted to the Instant Pot, and there is actually a crock pot setting here too. But that's for a whole other class. So what's your other question?
And the other question actually pertains to the rice. Can you use a Pyrex bowl as the inner vessel for cooking the rice?
Yes, you can. Just make sure that you cover it in foil. But that's an excellent question. As long as it's oven proof, okay? So your Pyrex bowl, as long as it says it's oven proof, you should be fine with that. But do cover it with foil because that will keep it from overcooking. Okay. Now I'm just looking here and okay, so did you hear that little beep? What that tells me is that this just reached high pressure. So you see, it still says 20 here because it thinks I'm going to cook for 20 minutes. But in just a minute, it's going to go to, I think it's going to go to 0 and start counting up. We'll see. Oh, no, it's starting at 20. Now, you heard that beep and that tells you that it's under pressure, but another way to know that it's under pressure is I'm going to show you on this, and let me just do a little bit of a, I want to do a zoom in here so you can see what's going on here. And I love, in particular, this lid has a nice colored button. So basically, remember I told you when we fill put our food in here, we put our lid on, okay? And there's only one way to lock it, and you have to line up, there's actually arrows that you line up, and then you close it into place. Not quite locked yet, but this one is under pressure. I cannot unlock it now, and this is a safety feature. So you can't open this unless you turn it off and you release the pressure that's in there. Okay, so pretend we put our food in here, we've closed this, and now remember, I told you that there's this, there's venting or sealing. In order to build the pressure, you have to turn that to sealing. Now, do you see this little button here? Okay, so this little button, when the contents of your Instant Pot come under pressure, this little button will pop up to tell you that it's pressurized and it's pushing the button up. That's a great sign. As the button starts to pop up, you may see a little steam coming out. And that's because there's a little rubber gauge here. And as this comes up, it's going to push some of the steam out. So don't panic. It will come to pressure. Also, you may see it kind of jumping like this. And you're like, what's happening? Why won't it come up to pressure? Just be patient. This is the hardest thing. It gets me every time. I'm like, it's almost at pressure. And then I jiggle it. And then suddenly it'll pop up. It's not because I jiggled it, but it's because it finally reached that pressure point. So that's something to keep in mind. It will tell you, number one, this will pop up. Number two, you'll hear that little beep beep that tells you, okay, it's under pressure. Once it reaches pressure, the computer in the Instant Pot will begin its countdown. So I don't know if you can see this, but now we're at 17 minutes. And so it's counting down from the 20 minutes. Okay, so you've got this.
Liz, is that the only setting on the Instant Pot is the timer? There is no other setting like a high
Oh no,
or a
there's
low?
other settings. Yeah.
Oh,
So I
okay.
wanted to, I'm here to bring this to you. Okay, so
Right, thank you.
Yep, there are other settings. So what we can see here, and I don't know, maybe this is better. That's a better view. Okay, so on the Instant Pot, you see pressure cook over here. That's if I'm manually setting it, okay? But you see there's this one that's called soup and broth. So when I make my broth or my soup, I use that button. Now, most of these buttons cook in the same way. In other words, they all heat up to temperature, okay, which is above boiling. I think it's about boiling is 212. I think this goes up to 225, something like that. Heats it up steadily, and then it cooks it steadily. And you'll hear it, everything bubbling inside it. You can't hear what's happening here, but I can hear it bubbling, and that's the water and then the liquid that the pork is producing. When you cook a soup or a broth, for those of you who took my class last month, you know that I told you, when you heat up your water on the stove with your vegetables and your chicken in it, you bring it to a boil and then you immediately drop it down to a slow simmer. That's what this button does. The computer knows that that's how we always want to cook our soup or broth, is to heat it up and then bring it down to a slow simmer. Now, the meat and stew, the bean and chili, the poultry, these all cook in exactly the same way, which is the same way under pressure cook. So I can push the meat and stew button, but it doesn't really cook in a different way. So I just don't use it. The key thing is to remember is that you're setting your time on here. The factory settings, they have some settings, but they're not the same for every recipe. So I honestly don't follow those except for like the rice setting. They've really got that down. So you can use the rice setting to cook rice if that's all you're cooking in here. And again, it's 1 part water to 1 part rice. Put it in, close it up, hit the rice setting, and I think it cooks for 12 minutes, and then you can release it and it should be finished. So that cooks differently. I think the multigrain, which is actually in porridge, these are British terms. So, you know, oatmeal would be the thing that I would think of when I do that. And then there is a steam button, which is really great for vegetables and fish because it goes super fast to heat up, and then you have to release it and get it the heck out of there so you don't overcook. Most recipes will call for a release time. Here's an example. We are cooking this for 20 minutes at high pressure. All right, the high pressure is automatically set. You don't have to worry about that. Once the 20 minutes are over, it's going to beep for us again. And then it's going to essentially shut off the Instant Pot. And so without the heat coming on, the pressure is lowering on its own, a natural release. Most recipes will call for a 10-minute natural release where you just leave it alone for 10 minutes and you'll see it'll count up to 10 for you. When that 10 minutes is over, then you have to release the pressure using that button, okay, and you put it on venting, and all of the pressure will come out, open it up, and your recipe is completed. All right. So that's something to keep in mind. And I bring that up again because with the steam, as soon as your timing is done under the steam setting, you just want to release the pressure and get that out of there so your vegetables or your fish don't overcook. Okay, do you have another question?
Well, there was a comment here about this attendee said that they matched a liquid using the meat stew setting on the Instant Pot for 20 minutes, but they were getting a burn error.
Okay, so you used the 1/4 cup of water, right? And you used a pork loin, and then you got a burn.
Right.
Okay, so a couple things about that. Number one, that's a great I love that this Instant Pot will tell you that. So for some reason, either the pork you bought didn't have enough water. Maybe I'm assuming that no steam really escaped before it came to pressure, because if any steam came to escape before it came to pressure, if it was a lot of steam, then you're reducing the amount of liquid in your pot. Now, what you can do, start over, release the pressure, open it up, and just add another, quarter cup of liquid to it and give it another try. All right. The recipes I have that problem with most often is this idea of cooking pasta in here with sauce, etc. I don't like to do it because I always end up burning it somehow, because maybe my pasta absorbs more water than a different pasta. I just don't find it to be consistent. But don't be afraid of that warning. It's telling you, okay, you need to add some more liquid. So just kind of step back to uh, phase one and add more liquid and give it another try, and it should be okay. So I appreciate you bringing that point up. Okay. Okay. There is another setting on here that you're going to find very useful in recipes. Some recipes ask that you saute your meat first, or your vegetables, maybe your onions and carrots. It all depends. There is a saute button right here. And that, once you turn it on, it will be on for 30 minutes until you turn it off. So if you only need to saute something for 10 minutes, you just turn it off. But it will heat up beautifully. You will have it'll be like a fry pan. You can't do this with your crock pot, right? But you can do it with an Instant Pot. So you can brown your meat, if that's what your recipe calls for, right here in the Instant Pot. And then you add the rest of your ingredients. You turn off the saute, you add the rest of your ingredients, and then you cook as your instructions tell you to. Some recipes will have you, at the end of the recipe, have you thicken the recipe. Now, here's something that's different from a crock pot, for example. If you add a thickener to your recipe before you put it in, and you're cooking it with a thickener in it, you could get that burn message because the recipe didn't account for this thickener of, maybe it's cornstarch or flour. So a lot of well-written crock-pot, Instant Pot recipes will have you thicken your recipe after it's been cooked. So you cook the recipe through, you open it up, and then you turn on the saute button, bring it to a boil, and then you add your thickening ingredient into it, and then you'll finish it that way. So saute is used in many different ways. So it looks like you had some questions come through.
Okay, so there is one, a couple of people have tried cooking chicken in their Instant Pot, and it's come out dry, and they're wondering what they can do.
Okay, not knowing the recipe you've used, I'm just going to troubleshoot this. So a couple of reasons why something will come out dry, especially chicken, which is a very low fat dish, is that you've overcooked it. So depending on your recipe, that may be the case. I think that's the most I can say about that, is that it would have been overcooked, or the liquid content wasn't enough. But I know chicken really produces a heck of a lot of liquid in it. So my guess is that it maybe was overcooked, but without knowing the recipe, I can't help you.
Okay. And then what is the difference in using a trivet for meat, such as chicken or pork, and not using a trivet to keep the meat off the bottom?
Okay, good question. So I use a trivet when I want to lift that meat out of there to do a thickening or something else. Again, it depends on the recipe you're using. So it's really important to have good quality recipes. This author, Urvashi Petri, she is the best that I know at this. And she has a million books. And they're very instructional. Which is what I love about this book is she actually introduces you to keto, which of course that's a whole other ballgame, but she introduces you to how to use your Instant Pot and all of the little things to know about it. And it's all in one book and it's so easy. And she has great recipes. So I'm going to, let me just pop her name into the chat. And then you can look her up. You can get her stuff pretty much anywhere. So it's, I don't have access to, oh, there we go, everyone. Perfect. So it's your Bashi Petri. This is my favorite cookbook author for Instant Pot. So, what was the question? Oh, the trivet. Okay. So yes, now we are going to use a trivet to put our cheesecake in for our second recipe. But for this case, what you could do also is, you know, we've got the pork in there on the bottom. I could have put it on a trivet. It would have been fine, but and then lifted it out. You could also put the pork in and then put your rice on a trivet and then lift that out. It all depends on what works for you. But if I am cooking with, now these are accessories for in pot cooking. So this is a series of little pots. So I could put my pork in there. I could put my rice in there. And I could put a little bit of broccoli in there and close it up, put them on a trivet or on this little holder, drop them into my Instant Pot and cook them all at the same time. So things like that are a wonderful way to do multiple items in your one Instant Pot cooking time. But keep your trivet because you will end up using that for a lot of different things to help you lift it out of the pot, which is really one of the main things. What other questions did we have?
Okay. No, not that many more questions at this
Okay.
point.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the only other thing was somebody bought a shoulder for the pork.
Yep.
For this recipe. That's the
Yep.
same, is it not?
It's fine. Yes, the loin is going to run along the ribs, the shoulders here, but it's got a lot of good fat in it. So I'm with you. I like to use that kind of meat. I mean, the cheaper the cut, the better, in my opinion. But just be aware if you have a lot of fat in there, you know, you're going to get that in the resulting. One thing I did want to point out is there is the sealing ring. Now mine is red because I like it because red to me is, I use this when I'm cooking meat, only because sometimes if you're cooking really flavorful stuff, like this has a lot of spices in it, it could get this, embed that smell into here. But you can pull this out, right? This comes right out and you can throw this into the dishwasher and it will wash it. You can also, all of these parts come apart and you can hand wash this if you wanted to. I wouldn't put this in the dishwasher, of course, but you know, this will definitely go into the dishwasher. You can buy replacements for this too, because over time, you know, people take this out and wash them separately. Over time, they'll stretch. And so you can get very inexpensively, you can get new sealing rings. But your Instant Pot will come with a sealing ring. So you don't have to worry about that for quite some time. Now, I'm going to move on to our cheesecake recipe, just so I can get that all settled for you. And then in just a few minutes, this is going to go off. If I take a peek at it, we've got 2 minutes on the cooking time here. And so, oh, here we go. All right, now, cheesecake, super easy. You'll never have a creamier cheesecake than made in your Instant Pot. And the beauty of it is that because it's cooked in a very moist vessel, it will keep your cheesecake nice and moist. You won't crack on the top. It won't be dry. You won't overcook the egg in it. So it's a really great way to make a cheesecake. Now, as I mentioned to you before, it's really important that you're using tools that are made for your Instant Pot. So this happens to be a 7-inch cheesecake mold specifically for a 6-quart Instant Pot. And so my recipe calls for a 7-inch cheesecake mold. So you want to make sure that you've got the right one because it needs to go in and out of your Instant Pot easily. So that's what I'm using for my Instant Pot. And I'm going to just, I've got some butter here. I'm just going to melt my butter and I'll come back and I'm going to show you how to make the crust for this. This is a super easy recipe. So into my food processor goes my cream cheese that is at room temperature. And I'm going to mix that with, I've got 2 eggs. My chickens have been busy. And I've got a 1/4 cup of, this is for this. I've got a 1/2 cup of sugar. That's going to go in there. And we've got 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla and salt, and those go in. And I've got a tablespoon or a couple teaspoons of lemon juice. And I've got a 1.5 tablespoons of flour that will help to thicken it, keep it together. I'm just going to turn this on. Let that mix, grab my butter. I'll be right back. All right. And then I'm going to add in, I've got 1/3 cup of sour cream. This really makes a super creamy, where is my little, oh, there it is. Very creamy cheesecake. So sour cream, and I use full fat sour cream. Oh, this isn't a good one. I love my tiny little spatulas. Okay, that goes in there. Just make sure that's all blended together. We do have our lemon zest. That's the last thing I'm going to add. And if you don't like lemon, you don't have to add the lemon. I just think it really balances out the flavor. So I'm going to put my zest right in there. Do we have any questions while I'm pulling this recipe together?
Well, someone wants to know if they can use a lime if they don't have a lemon.
You sure can. And then you're just going to have a lovely lime flavored cheesecake. That's fine. But again, you could also just use, you could up your vanilla if you wanted to do just vanilla.
And someone would like to know, okay, if they can substitute Greek yogurt for sour cream.
Sure. But it will be tart. It'll be a little bit on the tart side. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, I do things like that all the time. One of my favorite things to do is, well, not favorite, but if it happens that I don't have, say I have heavy cream and I have milk, but I don't have light cream, I just mix the milk and the heavy cream together. You know, there's a lot of things, substitutions that in the end, they really do make a lot of sense. So I don't think in this case, you can't do the Greek yogurt for the cream cheese, but certainly for the sour cream, that would be fine. Now, just want to tell you that this is my, you can use graham cracker crumbs. I don't like graham crackers, so I use ginger snaps, and I just make my own crumbs. this is about a half a bag of the ginger snaps that I buy. And then I've got my, my butter. So this is going to be the crust. Go ahead. I'm ready for more questions.
Okay, well, there's someone that loves your dishes with that you put the ingredients in and would like to know where she can purchase them.
Say again. Oh,
Your the
oh,
dishes,
these?
yes.
I was like, what? What? Actually, I'll tell you, I don't know where the heck I got them. Whenever I go into a store like a Pottery Barn or, you know, Crate and Barrel has great little dishes. I have, remember we used to have I don't know, Christmas tree shop is still around. Whenever I see a place that has these little dishes, I just buy up a bunch of them. Um, so, it's something you can have fun with, you know, just going to different stores, but you can also, I suppose Amazon would have them. These are made by, Everyday White, but I don't know what that means. And they're probably about 15 years old. So, anyway, yes, I love the shape of them.
And can you use a blender instead of a food processor to mix your ingredients for the cheesecake?
Uh, if it works for you, absolutely. You know, it just depends. You just want to make sure that the ingredients are, well blended and creamy. Okay. If you go, that's why it helps to have your cream cheese at room temperature, but I've even done it cold. I just put it in and just let it really go. You just want to make sure that it's nice and creamy. Now I'm pressing these cookie crumbs in, to the pan and up the sides. Now, the recipe says, it's not my recipe, it's one that I borrowed, but, to, put butter around the pan. I've never had an issue with that. So I don't even bother buttering it. There's plenty of butter, in this, cookie mixture. Okay. Now I've got it partway up the sides. Okay. It's not going to go up all the way on the sides. And then we're going to add our filling in. Make sure that it's all completely mixed, that there's no pieces of cream cheese that haven't been blended. Mine is, super yellow because I used my, eggs from my own chickens, which are beautifully yellow. And you can see how thick that is. And that's going to go in there. And then we're going to cook it in our Instant Pot. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me just get you want to get all of this yummy filling out. Don't leave anything behind. And while we have just a second, I just wanted to tell you all that last week I was at an event, that AARP New Hampshire was hosting. And I had the pleasure of meeting these ladies in person. Mary, was that the first time you and I have ever met in person, or no? Did we meet at another event?
Yes, we met at a caregiving event.
Yes, but I think Francis and I met for the first time in person after all these years. And it was just so wonderful. And I even had some volunteers for AARP come up to me, and just, we had wonderful chats, and they come to many of my classes online. And it was just such a thrill, after all this time, to meet you all, face to face. Such a lovely, group of people working for AARP. So, I just wanted to say that publicly, Mary. So, it was a lot of fun. Now, we're going to get, my big Instant Pot ready for this. And this one, I'm just going to bring this over because it's easier. So I typically cook this in my 6-quart, but because I've got the 8-quart ready to go, that makes it super easy. And of course, each one of these comes with their own, trivet. And we're going to put in here 1.5 cups of water. So now it doesn't have to be hot. It could be hot or cold. It doesn't matter. I think that's, a lot of people wonder about that. Should it be hot water, cold water? If it's hot water, it'll heat up, come to pressure faster. So in goes my water. And I'm getting ready to put this on. This cheesecake recipe says do not cover the cheesecake. Okay, so because we want that moist steam to help cook this in this very moist environment. So this will go right in to our Instant Pot. And we're going to cook this on high pressure for, I think it's 25 minutes, but I just want to double check on that. Let me just make sure that I've got the right timing here. And we're going to do it for 20 minutes. So into my large Instant Pot this goes. All right, move this hopefully so you can see it. All right, and move all this stuff out of the way. All right, and then we put our lid on, close it, put it to sealing the back, and then I'm going to hit pressure cook, and I'm going to increase the time because it was at 5 minutes. I'm increasing it to 20. And that's it. The only other thing is this tells me to this says keep warm, turn it off, and I hit the button. Now keep warm is really nice because you can this could cook and then you could say, I'm not ready for dinner. I don't want to eat yet, but I want to keep it warm. It will keep it warm for you. Now that beep is the computer said, yep, we're ready we understand the information you want, Liz. We're turning on. So this is a larger vessel. It'll take a little bit longer to come to pressure, but when it does, then it will begin the countdown and then I'll cook my cheesecake. Now let me just check here. So we've been talking, so this has been about 10 minutes. So I'm going to release the pressure on this, okay, because there's still, you see how there is still a little bit of steam coming up because I couldn't open it. Now that the pressure has been released, I can open this. Always open it away from your face because you don't want to burn your face. Hot steam will do that. And we're going to go ahead. Last of our cheesecake recipe. We're going to take out our rice. All right, so let me bring this over so you can see what's happening here. So I just take my rice out. Okay. And lift this off so you can see. Oops, I don't want to do it right under my phone because that will turn off the phone. Get the steam out. Okay, and if you take, oh, I have a spoon right here. Fluff this up. And now I have this wonderful rice ready to go with my dish. Okay, and then you're going to take your pork out. And you're going to, now I thought I had 2 forks here. Here we go. And then you're going to shred your pork. Okay, so, whoop. All right, now I was too eager to get this out. So you can see that this needs more shredding time. Okay, so let's just, sometimes mistakes are good, right? So I'm going to put this back in. Now here's a trick. You're going to see this. If I had done this according to the book, you wouldn't get this extra lesson. So now it's like, okay, oh, Liz, it's not done. What do I do? Well, let's get this back on. Okay, line up your arrows. All right, and lock it. And now I'm going to cook it for another 10 minutes just because I'm going to give that a try. So I'm going to clear this. Let's see, cancel. And then I'm going to lower this down to 10 minutes and it'll start cooking again. Now the beauty is everything is hot in there, so it won't take long for that to come up to pressure. And then I'll finish cooking it. Once it's done cooking, I'll take it out and then it will have been done just enough to let me shred the pork. I do want to show you my cheesecake. I think I have that in the refrigerator so that you can get, a feel for that. The last thing on the cheesecake that you want to do is you want to mix, this is sour cream and sugar. That is a beautiful topping on top of your cheesecake. When your cheesecake is done, you're going to open up the lid and take your cheesecake out, and you'll notice that there's water on top of the cooked cheesecake. Just take a paper towel and hold it over the edges of your cheesecake, and it will absorb all of the extra water. You can even tip the cheesecake a little bit and then let it absorb and pull up the extra water. Then you're going to mix your sour cream with your sugar, and while your cheesecake is still warm, put that on and then let it come to room temperature and then stick it into your refrigerator. And now we're going to do the unveiling. I'm going to run a knife around the edge. Right? There we go. Snap that open. Take that up. And here is my beautiful cheesecake. It's absolutely perfect. Okay. And we're going to cut into that so you can see how pretty that is. And then once we're off air, guess who gets to have a slice of cheese? So let's put this to the side. Do you see how fast that came to pressure? Okay, cut down. I'm going to be a good girl and just have a small piece. Now, the other thing I've discovered, because I have done this recipe many times in classes, so you can see, oh, look at how beautiful that is. Perfect. You can see that now I'm going to have 2 cheesecakes left. I just freeze it. Once it's cooked, I put the topping on it, wrap it carefully while it's still in its container, and I pop it in the freezer, and that can freeze for up to a month or so. And then I take it out, let it thaw in the refrigerator or at room temperature, and it's perfect. So this is a very easy but really creamy cheesecake. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but you can tell that this is not overcooked at all. It's beautifully creamy and the flavoring is wonderful. All you need is a little fruit topping. So anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that you saw that, learned from my mistake, right? Because our recipe did call for me to have it at 25 minutes cooking and then to let it naturally release for another 20 minutes. That naturally release time, it's actually cooking. So I only let it do it for 10 minutes. So, you know, I really shorted this on 15 minutes of cooking time, which would have made a difference and helped me to shred this pork. So I want you to keep that in mind. When you're cooking in your Instant Pot, you have to keep the timing in order. So what you have to take into account is that, yes, the recipe said to cook this for 25 minutes, but it took about 10 minutes to come to temperature. And then it took 25 minutes to cook. So that's 35 minutes. And then it wanted it to sit for another 20 minutes. So that was 55 minutes total cooking time for this. So keep that in mind. Is an Instant Pot instant? No. Does it cut down on the cooking time? Yes. But you still have to figure in that you've got to raise this up to pressure. So that takes about 10 minutes. It's got to cook for the time they say. And then you have to leave it in there for that natural release time of typically 10 minutes, but in this case, 20 minutes. So what other questions do we have before we go?
I don't, most of the questions you pretty much answered. Somebody did want to know, okay, it was about getting the, let me look this up. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Liz, I saw one and nobody they didn't tell me, but they were asking if there's different kinds of meat, and I didn't know if they meant for this recipe or just in general to go into the Instant Pot. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like pork and you'd rather use like, a cut of beef, you could certainly do that. Um, I would say it would take a similar time frame. Yeah,
right?
it just depends on how tough it is.
And I think the other question, if somebody didn't have a trivet, could they, put aluminum foil?
Yeah. Something tells me that these questions are from people who have actually done this and they're helping me give some hints because that's a great thought. So if you don't have a trivet, you can take your foil and go like this and do that, and that creates a trivet for you. The other thing you can do is the trivet actually helps you to lift something out of the pot, but you could make your own. It's almost like a belt. So you're going to do this, and then you're going to say we'll take this set of pots, put this in, and then this is a good way to raise and lower something in and out of your Instant Pot. And if you put it in, just fold this over and leave it and cook like that. And then when it's done, you open it up and then you can lift your items right out of there. So you could do that.
there was another question I saw too, Liz. When the person had asked about doubling the meat, do they double the spices? Do they also double the water?
You have to, yes. Just double everything. You can't go wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if someone doesn't have an Instant Pot when they have made their cheesecake, they'd like to know if they could put it in the oven at 350. Yeah.
Yeah. So remember, cheesecake really needs to be cooked in a water bath. Okay, so that's a whole different method of cooking. And so in that case, if my memory serves me well, because it's been a while since I've cooked it that way, you're going to use like okay, I'm just gonna grab that. Okay, like a Pyrex dish. I would use one that's higher. Your liquid needs to come halfway up your um cheesecake pan. You have to cover your cheesecake pan with foil. And then you're going to cook it. And I honestly don't know what temperature you're going to cook it at, and I can't tell you for how long. But here's what I'm going to say to make that easy for you. You can use the recipe for the cheesecake. Just follow the cooking instructions for another recipe, and that should be fine. I hope that helps.
And one last question, if
Mhm.
someone uses beef instead of pork, does it matter what cut of beef?
Yeah, well, you want to use one similar to the pork, I would say. Oh, maybe a chuck would be okay. A top round would be fine. Again, notice how you cut it into those smaller pieces to help it cook a little bit faster. We definitely want to do that. Okay. How are we doing? Are we all set, do you think?
We're all set. Thank you, Liz.
Okay. Thank you all so much for joining me. Next month is Sheet Pan Meals. And for those of you who have a partner or a spouse or somebody who does not like cooking, you got to bring them to this class. My husband, who's newly retired, he actually enjoys cooking, but hasn't had a lot of opportunity to do it. So now he's retired and he loves sheet pan meals because it's successful every time. It doesn't take a lot of time and he doesn't have to deal with a lot of things cooking at different times and figuring that out. Sheet pan meals, it's all one time, all on one sheet pan. So that's fun. And for those of you who have taken my classes before, I've got a couple new recipes for you. So it's just another fun day to get together. But I'd like to thank you all for joining me today. This is always my favorite class, and I will tell you, I'm not taking any more customers. So AARP, you are my customers as I'm heading into retirement. I thoroughly enjoy my time with you all. Ladies, thank you so much for hosting and for helping me to get this class on the road.
Thank you, Liz. It was a very good demonstration, and I can't wait to make these delicious recipes myself using my Instapot. So today's cook-along demonstration is one of the many upcoming virtual event offerings provided by AARP New Hampshire. Please visit www.aarp.org/New Hampshire to learn of our other virtual events, which include gentle yoga, painting classes, and educational webinars. If you're interested in volunteering for AAR New Hampshire Community Team, contact us at nhaarp@aarp.org. As we said, our next cooking class with Liz will teach us how to make flavorful sheet pan recipes. So join us on April the 18th at 2 o'clock for this fun cook-along demonstration. And you can register at this class at www.aarp.org/nh. So thanks for joining us today, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.